for her. My pleasure to introduce Olivia Bouchard. She took painting classes for me for a while, and then she abandoned me for the other people in the department, taking ceramics and sculpture and those types of things. But it was always fun to have Olivia in class because she's one of the most positive people I've ever met. And she's got so much energy, and when you talk to her about what she might be doing in her painting, she's always like, oh yeah, she's always agreeing, and so it really works towards making the work the best she possibly can. You've probably seen the work over there. She's also concentrated in, or whatever you call it, for the health sciences. Is it a concentration? But it's not a concentration.
You don't get labeled.
You don't get labeled at all, right? But you get all those coursework for pre-med, and she's an art teacher. So with that, I think she's going to take it away.
Yeah, okay. This week, if you haven't seen it yet, it's been displayed in the gallery room. And today, basically, I'm going to be talking about my process from junior spring, when I had my idea kind of beginning, into its final presentation, which you will see after this talk. All right, so being deeply connected to the natural world, my love for science and the environment has been a passion for my whole life. So when given an opportunity during my senior year to investigate a topic for my project, I knew exactly where to go. And during my spring quarter of my junior year, I was taking 2 classes, mold processes and environmental science at the same time. And molds is a course where you investigate what a mold is, so like a water bottle, anything that can hold liquid, that can potentially, you can remove that outside layer and then you have a mold of what that object was. So we investigated how to make molds, what molds are, different materials that can be made by or into a mold. So each of my projects in this class were focused on a topic I was learning about in environmental science, and that's where I began to see art as a possible channel for activism in a way to educate people and get them engaged with the environment. So my first project in mold was line location, and I focused on the topic of climate change. Specifically in the Southwest, there is severe drought, and this leads due to lack of rainfall and a warming climate. Rivers have been depleted, as you can see. It used to be way up here with water, and then over time, the line of this river has been diminished. So line location, I chose the Colorado River as my location, and the line that I looked at was the actual river moving through a space, and at the same time, the thickness of the river was dwindled, and then also the line, of course, would also be dwindled. So kind of looking at the formal element of a line through a natural element of the river. And then the small scale, you can't really see, those are my hands up there pouring water in, so you can kind of get an idea about the scale of this. It sits about this high, is like the tallest one. And so the size of the human is very overpowering to this small sculpture, which I tried to connect with the impact that humans can have on the natural world. My second project in molds was artificial nature. So each person had to create a project that, was fake nature in a way, which in a sense you kind of think, well, couldn't anything be that? But so this project I titled Look Before You Leap, and I investigated, again, the human contact in the environment and the potential detrimental effects. So this is a flower that's native to Michigan. It's called Mimulus michiganensis, and it's called also known as the monkey flower, and it's like a little tiny little guy. I have a thing for small things. Everything I do is about really small. So of course I was drawn to this flower, and it is endangered in Michigan, wetland, so it lives kind of on the edges of a wetland. And wetlands hold a great amount of aged sediment, which is rich in nutrients, which can be used for crop fertilization and many other things. So people suck out the water from the wetland to use for this purpose, and then the vegetation and any type of plant or animal life along the wetland will, die. So this is where kind of the biodiversity idea first kind of sparked in my mind, when losing a very large resource can deplete biodiversity of any ecosystem. So I created these wax molds. So I'll talk about the art a little bit now. So they're actually larger. So the Colorado River, I kind of went down in size. So obviously, I'm not going to make a mold of a river, but so for the flower, it's a very small one, so I kind of blew it up, and they're pretty big. One kind of fits in two hands, and they're made from wax, and they're similar to the color of the actual flower, which is yellow. And the wax petals, since they're made of wax, they can be easily broken or chipped, which sadly one of our flowers it is broken now, but that's fine. So that's also emulating the effect of a human hand on some part of the natural world, the delicacy of this world that we live in. So then for my documentation of this project, I placed them on the outskirts of this wetland, and then this was during critique. Obviously, we didn't go to the wetland for the critique, but I took little images, and there they are. Yes. Also, in addition, I had this little card, which you can see. It's a little stack. And it said, Mimulus michiganensis is at risk of extinction. Think globally, act locally. And this was kind of a takeaway item that the viewer could, as they are leaving the exhibit, they could take with them and, have that in mind every time they see a little flower, not to stomp on it. Yes, so an awareness thing. So my last project in molds was back to plaster. So the Colorado River was plaster, and this second one was wax, and I went back to plaster molds. And this project was titled monochrome, so everybody had to choose a color in the class, and a lot of people chose red for that project. I don't know why. I didn't want to choose red, obviously. That's weird. So I chose this pastel blue-green. And so you choose your color first, and then you have to create a form or an object that represents that color in all ways. So again, environmental issue. I chose ocean acidification, and this species I looked at is called a sea butterfly, or it's called a pteropod, which is known as the sea butterfly to people who don't know what pteropods are. And so with climate change, with all the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, oceans act as a giant sink and can absorb the carbon dioxide, and then there's a chemical reaction that leads to carbonic acid. And a lot of pteropods, or any kind of aquatic life that has a shell, so any shellfish or other shell creatures, their shell gets degraded by this chemical reaction. So the sea butterfly it's kind of snail-like. It has a pod, and then it has these wings that kind of expand out from its body. And super cool. Of course, it's also microscopic. It's this big, and you can see them floating in the water. It's super cute. Yeah, so it's weightless, and it's dramatically affected by this because it is so small. Since it has such a small surface area, it's a lot faster of a reaction with its shell being degraded. Whereas if you had a giant snail in the ocean, it would take longer for effects to be seen. So with the setup of my project, the viewer was able to walk underneath it and kind of through it, but again, any little nudge or bump could cause the molds to fall to the floor and crash and shatter and be destroyed. So again, looking at the effects of human impact on the environment. consequences of human interaction and just general, these causes of environmental issues that were, made about by humans being and so, yes. So then over the summer, I investigated different, larger issues like the climate change, pollution, pesticides. There's a lot going on out there that is in the news, and you know about it. And yes, okay. So there's bigger problems. There's also, more global or more local ecological difficulties that we encounter more close to home. So art as education issues today, and then I also looked at artists who are in the field of environmental awareness and what projects they're working on. So, Maya Lin. So Maya Lin is the woman who created the Vietnam Memorial, if you've seen that, the listing. So she, in 2003, she created this multimedia, multi-location, multi-everything, and it included a website. It has a couple installation pieces, and she focused on the extinction of species and habitats around the world. So you can go to, I'm pretty sure it's just whatismissing.com, and there's this interactive website where it's a map of the world, and you'll see all these little dots, and then if you touch one, it'll expand into a picture of a species that is at risk or a habitat that is at risk. And then you'll also see under that what is happening to help preserve that species or that habitat, kind of like what's happening right now. Archive, because she created in 2003, so today you can look and see what species have now gone extinct since 2003, which ones are at the verge of extinction and that sort of thing. And so then she also, so the what is missing, that's this general thing, and there's a couple projects that are under this broader project or this broader piece. And in 2009, so a couple years after, she created this cone, which is in the bottom right, which stands outside the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. And part of her website had these core, she called them core videos, where you can see an animal in its habitat naturally, what it's doing. You can hear things, the sounds, and there's no human interaction visible. So this cone, you would peer down, you would step up to the cone and peer down, and you would see a little projection of a video from the website, and then the sound would be amplified towards you, so that it would just be a very narrow focus. So that was one of her, more literal installation pieces that you could, go see. She also, the image above is another part of her project called The Empty Room, which is an interactive installation, and this was in 2005, and you would walk into this, this is in China, the Beijing Center of Arts in China, 2005. So this piece focused on the absence of species. So you walk into the room and it's black, and there's kind of flickering lights everywhere. You can kind of see these projections onto the wall, and you would go in and you would have this clear screen that you could hold over these projections, and you would catch a glimpse of that animal for a second, but then it would move somewhere else. So it's kind of looking at these short moments of hearing. You would hear them, but you wouldn't really see them until you could catch it, and then it would go away. So kind of physically being connected to the work and physically being connected to this, the species being there, and then the species immediately being gone again. So Maya Lin, she was one of my big influences. Next, Diane Burko. She is a painter and a photographer. She works also, in art and science, making that connection. She's focusing mostly on climate change and glacier activity. So, you hear the glaciers are melting, ice caps are melting, that's real stuff happening. So she's, sorry, I shouldn't talk about that. That's her topic. So she does photography, and her earlier paintings focus on Earth's changes caused by natural phenomena, like plate tectonics are one of her favorite things to research. She She's also made a number of trips to the Americas and Europe, documenting volcanoes, hot springs, mountains, rainforests, and glaciers, where she'll then go back into these photographs and create paintings from them. In 2003, she was invited to take a trip to Antarctica, cool, and document glacial activity. And so she, again, she went to this sublime, serene landscape, documented all these pictures, and then went back at her studio. Obviously, she's not going to paint in Antarctica. So she went back to her studio and then created this set of 3 works, which the first one is in 1938, and then 1981, and then 2009, and this is the same glacier, and you can see totally how, it is melting. So she is using, this literal fact of climate change and kind of just representing the facts visually through the painting. It's less of, Milo is taking a little bit more in an abstract route, obviously still representing the facts, but, less, she wasn't doing any, paintings, 2D projects where it's very flat, but still representative of, a change occurring. Yeah, I really liked this quote that I found that she, this is part of her glacier perspectives that she had, it was an exhibition. I want to seduce the viewer with my painting of the landscape and then subtly engage them in contemplating its survival. So, being drawn in by just the sheer, beauty, and these are also giant paintings, like, I think it's 7 feet tall, and then it goes about 12 feet across with 3 of them, so 7 by 3, so it's pretty big, similar to the ones that you'll see later. So she, uses size and just like grandscapes to kind of suck the viewer in, and then have them realize if they want to, preserve what they are seeing. Okay, so those are my 2 favorite artists, and so that was like summer research, summer fun, and then Advanced Studio in the fall. So at the beginning of Advanced Studio, I began to test out different ideas for my SIP project after doing research over the summer about these different issues, these environmental issues, seeing what work other people are, real life artists are doing. So I struggled early on trying to figure out exactly what topic. I liked Sarah and I early on, we talked about, having a broad idea can sometimes be, you would think that it would be easy because there's so much that you can talk about, but really narrowing down your idea to a very concrete point can actually be more successful, so that you can really, do the comb that way instead of, yeah. So